Welcome everyone. Let's jump right in. The insights from that recent video, where the scholar declared, "We will never be the next China," really bring a lot to the table.
Absolutely, it's a bold statement. I mean, doesn't it really force us to ask, how does India's path diverge so sharply from China's?
Right, exactly. The scholar digs into it by pointing out that historical conditions can't be replicated. India's legacy, its structural challenges like pervasive poverty, infrastructure issues, and literacy hurdles make it a different beast compared to China.
Yeah, and it really got me thinking, if India's starting point is so different, then expecting the same kind of supercharged growth seems unrealistic, doesn't it?
Exactly. And there's this interesting bit around how the global economic environment now isn't the same either. The world has changed a lot since China's rapid industrialization.
Yeah, I appreciate that point. But uh, could it be argued that while structural challenges are daunting, India's youthful population and massive market might still carve a unique growth trajectory, even if not replicating China's?
That's a fair question. The scholar does address that. He shows that while there are opportunities, the path isn't a simple replication. It's like, um, you can't simply say, "Oh, look at the demographic dividend," without also confronting the deep rooted issues in education and infrastructure.
True, but isn't it also about, policy decisions? China's rise was powered by very deliberate reforms. Can't India, with the right reforms, potentially overcome these challenges?
Well, that's where the scholar's analysis really gets interesting. He argues that the conditions which enabled China's explosive growth, like the unique combination of historical social organization and political will, are pretty much absent in India today.
Right? So it's less about what India could be and more about what it is dealing with, its entrenched social and economic fabric.
Exactly. It's like trying to run a marathon with a handicap. The scholar points out that when you look into the chapters on India's development challenges and then the complete analysis section, it's a stark reminder that the next China narrative is overly simplistic.
There's this part around 3 hours in the video where he really spells out those challenges: poverty, low infrastructure, and even issues like education. And then later, around 6:48, his complete analysis just sums up why even with aspirational reforms, the economic superpower route seems unlikely.
Yes, exactly. It's like if you build your house on shifting sands, no matter how robust the design, it's hard to sustain greatness. And when you add the modern global economic uncertainties, it's not just a domestic issue.
Yeah, I get that. But don't you think there might be a risk of underestimating India's potential? I mean, the scholar's tone is quite definitive. Could it be too pessimistic in some respects?
That's a valid critique. While the analysis seems quite definitive, it does come from a long term perspective. He isn't dismissing growth altogether. He's just saying that achieving the same type of transformation as China did might be off the table.
Right, and he backs that up with historical examples. China's unique path was a product of its specific conditions, things that haven't aligned similarly in India.
Exactly. And it's not like India isn't growing. It's more about the kind of growth and the challenges in replicating the very specific model China had. The video really forces us to ask, should we even compare the two nations on a like-for-like basis?
Yeah, that's true. It's almost like an apples to oranges debate in some ways. How can a country with one set of historical, cultural, and political dynamics be directly compared to another with such a different background?
Right, and I think that's where the scholar's analysis strikes a chord. He provides a nuanced debate rather than simply bashing either narrative. And even his timeline in the discussion, starting with the introduction, moving into the structural issues, and finally the complete analysis, suggests that everything from historical to present-day economic shifts has been factored in.
I also liked how the video succinctly encapsulated these challenges in a chapter format. It gives viewers clear milestones in the discussion. First, it sets the scene. Then it dives deep into development hurdles. And finally, it lays out the comprehensive analysis.
Yeah, it's like a roadmap of India's economic predicament. And one thing that really stands out to me is the idea that while India's potential is enormous, its journey might require an entirely different strategy than what worked for China.
Yeah, I agree. The debate often hinges on a sort of mythos around rapid industrialization. But it's not just policy, it's the underlying social fabric that's at play. And when you consider India's millions of diverse communities and the inherent socio-economic imbalance, the scale of transformation is just staggeringly complex.
Absolutely. It's like, imagine trying to tailor a suit for a gigantic, diverse crowd with hundreds of different patterns. You can't just use one template. The scholar's argument reminds us that for India, the answer might lie in building progressive, incremental change rather than a wholesale transformation modeled on another nation's experience.
That's a powerful analogy. And it really challenges the prevailing narrative that India should simply mimic China's blueprint to become a global powerhouse. Instead, the focus should be on addressing, step by step, the unique challenges that India faces.
Right. And there's also a global angle here, how the international environment has shifted. Sure, China's rise took place in a very different global context, one where the rules were different. Now, with globalization evolving and new superpowers emerging, the geopolitical game has changed considerably.
Yeah, and that raises an interesting point. With global power structures in flux, perhaps the comparison to China isn't even relevant anymore. It might have been a useful benchmark at one time, but now it could just be an outdated comparison.
Exactly, and the scholar hints at that too. He essentially returns to the idea that every nation has a unique path. The debate forces us to rethink what success looks like. Maybe it's not always about mirroring another country's achievements, but rather carving out a distinct developmental journey.
I hear you on that. And it makes me wonder, is there a risk then that by continually comparing India to China, we might be missing some internal opportunities for redefining growth?
That's a great question. Indeed, overemphasizing the China model can lead to what you might call a tunnel vision, ignoring India's internal dynamism and diverse strengths. The scholar's perspective pushes for a conversation that's not simply about copying a model, but about acknowledging and harnessing what's uniquely available to India.
Yeah, I do appreciate that more nuanced take. It's like he's saying, hey, instead of trying to be the next China, focus on becoming the best version of yourself.
Exactly, and that's a thought provoking takeaway. It invites policymakers and thinkers to shift the narrative from imitation to innovation. And it challenges the external pressures that often force countries into these reductive comparisons.
Still, some might argue that if India doesn't aim for that transformative leap, it risks stagnation. What do you make of that counterpoint?
I see that argument, but it's important to nuance it. The scholar isn't saying India should settle for mediocrity. It's about realistic expectations. The aspirations remain, but the path might not be as explosive or as rapid. It's more about sustainable, albeit gradual progress.
Yeah, that makes sense. In a way, it's stressing quality over speed, which, in economic terms, can be far more beneficial in the long run.
Right, and when you think about it, the idea of a miracle economic transformation might work for a hyper-specific set of circumstances. India, with its pluralistic society and wide-ranging challenges, might be better served by reforms that are tailored to its own unique story rather than a forced replication.
It's a fascinating debate, especially when you consider how these discussions influence global perceptions. The narrative of Next China has a way of oversimplifying complex developmental trajectories.
Absolutely, and honestly, it's a wake up call for both experts and the general public to re examine these sweeping comparisons. It's like sometimes we need to step back and look at the detailed tapestry of social, economic, and political factors instead of trying to fit everything into a single mold.
Yeah, and that, in a nutshell, can lead to more realistic and perhaps even more effective policy making that builds on India's inherent strengths.
Exactly. It's a balanced call for a more context driven approach to development. The scholar's analysis might be bold, but it's also an invitation for a richer, more sophisticated debate about growth, modernization, and the genuine path forward for India.
Well said. At the end of the day, it's not about mimicking another nation's journey, but about discovering and nurturing your own.